everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Watch New Evil. This is Matt.
And this is Zach.
And we've finally done it. We're finally going to take a look at the 1979 science fiction horror film directed by Ridley Scott, Alien, which is one of my personal favorite movies. And I forced Zach to watch it so that he has now seen it. I forced you to watch it. It was...
No, I've been dying to see this one too.
Yeah, there were chains and padlocks involved. It was essentially Saw.
I'm imagining almost like Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Yeah. Zach, I wanted to actually start out this podcast episode. I know a lot about this movie, but what would you say your knowledge of Alien is?
So previous to this, I had only seen Prometheus. And I remember next to nothing because I feel like you have to, watching that movie, you have to be somewhat informed on the alien lore.
Well, you may not have known much about Alien, but let's test your knowledge about other aliens from other movie franchises. And so I created a game. It's called Alien Anybody's Guess. And so I'm going to name a race of aliens, and I want you to tell me where they're from. All right, so here's the first one. You already know this. The Xenomorph. Where is it from?
Duh. Alien?
Yeah, it's a gimme. It's from the Alien property, okay? This next one also should be easy. Where are the Kryptonians from?
Is that like Superman?
It is Superman. So here's the next one. Where is this amphibious alien species from? The Mon Calamari.
Oh, that's Star Wars. That's what Akbar is.
Yeah, it is. Admiral Akbar is a member of the Mon Calamari species. Where are the Na'vi from?
Oh, that's Avatar. That's the blue people.
That's Avatar. You got it. Awesome. Okay, you're doing good. This is the colloquial name for them. Where are the prawns from?
Isn't this from... This is an old movie, right?
Not too old.
Okay. I was gonna say, what was it? Isn't it called they came from outer space or something like that?
No.
I'm wrong.
Much more recent actually. District 9.
Oh,
the prawns.
What are the actual aliens called?
I don't think that they ever specify. I think they just call them prawns in the movie.
Oh, I forgot about that movie. That's actually a really good movie.
It is a good movie. Okay, Zach, where are the dolphins from?
That's Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
It is the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Matt,
wow.
You're gonna be questioning my knowledge of the Hitchhiker's Guide.
I didn't know you were familiar with it.
Yeah, I mean, I've read the book. I've read the first two books.
My last one. The last one that I have, and this one's probably the hardest. Where are the Yatia from? The Yatia is the race that they've been given. They are more often known by the same title as their movie.
Hasbro. Canonically, that's like what the dice are called.
What? Hasbro? What?
Yeah, like Yahtzean.
Oh, oh, God. All right.
You better delete that.
I'm not going to delete it. It's going to stay in here.
So that's got to be the Predator?
It is the Predator, yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we call them Predators because they hunt. Obviously, we call these aliens the alien from Aliens. But it's a xenomorph.
I like that in the movie that there is this kind of anonymity to the alien. So I don't really like xenomorph. I mean, that's very realistically how humans like to name things. So I guess it's not terrible.
Xenomorph came after. It wasn't xenomorph until later on. And in fact, in this movie, they only refer to it really as a life form.
The perfect organism.
And we get to kind of see how the alien, or what we call the xenomorph, evolves throughout the course of the series. The first version of it is this sort of parasitic microbial organism that we see in Prometheus that infects a human host. It goes through these different transformations, these host transformations, but the first time that we see a xenomorph, it is actually emerging like a chest burster from a human. The first thing that we call a xenomorph is actually human born. And one of the things that's really interesting about the Alien franchise is in every iteration of the films, in every, successive movie, they tell you a little bit more about the sort of origin of these alien species and the way that there is almost this desire for the alien to become a little little bit more human. And we see that in the sort of way that it creates this colony in Aliens. And then specifically in the fourth one, there's sort of like a weird sex scene between her and the alien, which gives rise to a new alien species that looks humanoid more so than the current one, and acknowledges her, Ripley, as its mother. So it's all about like the life cycles and how they relate not only to the life cycle of the alien, but also to their own evolution into this sort of proto-humanesque form.
I think that, a lot of that is to show the adaptiveness of this species. And if you think about like the amount of time and space that this evolution is taking place over, it makes sense like for it to be in its current form wherever it is.
And when they call it a perfect organism, they're actually referring to it as a genetic perfection. And this idea that if left untouched by humans, they would essentially be immortal. Because that's why the Weyland-Yutani Corporation is like so adamant about finding them. And the whole metaphor of Prometheus is that, he was the one that brought fire to people. The human race is created from this, essentially a race of giants, right? That's who these Prometheans are. And so there is a connectivity between the Prometheans and humans, the Prometheans and the aliens and the humans. So there is this sort of triadic relationship.
I mean, like with the head of this corporation, like wanting these aliens to, it's like, it's a fountain of youth situation, you know? At the end of the day, and in the form of almost like a colonization kind of thing, which there are plenty of pieces of media about, searching for the fountain of youth. Prometheus bringing fire to man. It's like, think of how like we use fire as a tool to improve our own quality of life, longevity, to even stay warm and survive through the seasons. And it's kind of like that adaptability of these aliens as being like their fire, their ability to survive. And I think that's why they consider it the perfect organism, is because it's not because, it's a killing machine and can destroy anyone that it comes into contact with. It's more of like its ability to survive, its hardiness, because that's right from the get-go. The facehugger stage, I guess, they're talking about how it doesn't look like that terrifying. It's just attached to his face, like, and it's still helping Kane breathe. Then they try to pry it off, and they cut its leg, and they discovered the acid blood. And I think it's Parker that says it's got a wonderful defense mechanism. You wouldn't dare kill it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what would be easier to kill, the facehugger or the chest burster, but this is in its most fragile form, right? So this makes you wonder at that point in the movie, like, okay, what are the abilities going to be as it grows and evolves here? Okay, so the facehugger it's clearly a parasite. It's like the parasitic stage of its life.
It's the botfly.
Yeah, and the way that parasites usually work, it has a host, and parasites stick to one species of host because they have learned to how to process and assimilate and benefit from that host's DNA. It stands to be true that then the xenomorphs can only treat the humans as hosts, which I don't know if that's what they were thinking when they made this movie. Or they thought, hey, this movie was pretty successful, let's make a sequel and actually make this more scientific and canonical in nature, and really create a solid through line throughout this franchise. And that being said, and you describing what happens throughout the series and me having seen both ends of the series, it sounds like they do a pretty solid job.
It really does develop it over time. Like, the qualities of the movies, I think, does obviously diminish a little bit. But you do, in each movie, get a significant piece of new information for each consecutive movie about their history, about how they are developing. Like everything is thoroughly explained as far as the actual progression of the aliens. Like we get more and more pieces of the puzzle. And so I would say that you then question, like, how does the life cycle of this creature actually work? Which I think is interesting, and it's fascinating because the metaphor is that of motherhood. And it started as this sort of statement on motherhood and on specifically like violence against women. This is shown in a couple of ways. First of all, what is the name of the computer?
It's Mother.
Yeah, exactly. And so the mother is the thing that wakes them up and has them get out of their stasis pods, which is a metaphor for them being obviously taken out of the womb. John Hurt's character, Kane, getting attacked and essentially impregnated by the xenomorph, or the facehugger, is that idea of like forced pregnancy that is forcibly brought to term in the form of the chest burster. And actually it's interesting too, because in other references in media there are so many relationships between pregnancy, motherhood, and this movie. For example, in The Simpsons, there is a scene where Homer witnesses a woman giving birth, and he says, "This is like that scene out of Alien." I think that part of it is so much attached to a little bit, at least, that like forcibleness, that idea that it's like these people or these mothers, these women are being forced to sort of carry these children. And in that, you know, there is something very phallic to the face hugger, how it deposits the eggs in one's stomach. But then also when we get to see that sort of like trope of the violence against women in that metaphor, when Ash has Ripley in the sort of communal area and he has her knocked out on the wall, in the background on the wall we see all of these like little cut up pictures of naked women from like magazines and stuff, and Ash rolls up one of the magazines and starts to shove it down her throat, and that's like very clearly like phallic imagery.
Mm-hmm. Even like how he was holding it too, like where he was holding it.
That is sort of like the example of this idea of like masculinity and like the like sexual domination idea, because it comes up again too in the way that we sort of have Ripley is depicted as being this like, she's, first of all, she's a very strong woman. And she is the mother figure on the ship, and she's not respected. Like, they don't listen to her. Like the other kids, they open the airlock, even though, you know, direct orders given, they are not to do that. They do it anyway. Mm-hmm. The way that Parker, he makes a lot of sort of sexual references to Veronica Cartwright, Lambert. There's this like idea of masculinity. There's also this like sort of assumption that Ripley and Dallas had a romantic relationship or like a sort of sexual relationship that wasn't on an even power balance.
Oh, with the mother AI, what was interesting about that is a lot of those moments that involve mother. Mm-hmm. One, it's often like the men who are in charge before they die, they go to mother to kind of like solve the problem for them. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's like they're truly treating it like a mother, and they're children, and they're kind of helpless without her. And then Ripley like finally goes in there and is like, all right, let's see what this computer is telling me I should do. And she then finds out that it's like, shrug, you know, you're on your own, basically. You know, inside the mother like capsule room, you get all these like really symmetrical shots of like the head on like these panels, and there's these lights that are blinking in symmetry across the room, and it's this like really, it's kind of like this almost football shaped room, but it's symmetrical. And you get that when they come out of the pods in the beginning too. You get this like really symmetrical shot when the pods all open up. Yeah. And it's like eerie how centered that camera is. And it also happens in the infirmary when Kane is on the kind of like the gurney slab, whatever you want to call it. There's one man on either side of him, and it's got Kane kind of like you're looking at his at the top of his head, and you have one guy on either side of him. So there's another symmetrical shot in this infirmary, which is like, you know, kind of this you're being taken care of kind of place, and your wounds are being healed, and it's like motherly care. So I don't know what the symmetry has to do with it. I think maybe it's like you get two basically identical sides to the story and the screen. You get what we know as motherhood as humans, but there's also like aliens. It's almost to show what we would call the humanity of the aliens. Like they are their own, they have their own culture and connections and attachments just like we do. But yeah, you could go down that road all day. But what I was really like the strongest impression that I got from this movie was the atmosphere, and it does such a good job.
Killer.
The sound design combined with the cinematography combined with the set design. But the atmosphere of this is just so consistent and permeated in all this stuff. Like, it all works together in such a fluid and tight way. Like, the sound design itself, you get, and you mentioned this while we were watching it, there's the silence of space, but you then combine that with like kind of the ambient like and mechanical sounds of the ship and the planet surface, which is like kind of disorienting and unsettling, because, you know, when you get those, you get the sounds of the outside of the ship, you get the sound of the ship like kind of rushing past, but with the silence of space around it. And then you get the silence of the inside of the ship in those tense moments where, oh, let's try to find the alien, or let's try not to be found by the alien. And there's those tense moments. And you also get the ambient sounds of like the ship on the inside. So you get this like just this unsettling feeling that whole time of like, all right, what does this sound mean? Or what does this sound mean? You know, where's the alien? Or, you know, it's just like kind of off kilter the whole time. I mean, I say those two things, like where you get silence and the ambient sounds and the mechanical sounds and like the really loud sounds, but they cut between the two so jarringly at times. It's like, it's really disorienting, but it adds and kind of establishes that atmosphere originally, because that's the thing that's consistent throughout the whole movie. So I just want to talk about set design real quick, because this is something that isn't really consistent throughout the movie. It's immersive the whole time. You feel like you're on a spaceship.
Right.
And you feel like you're on an alien planet. It's really, really well done. And it looks great. For being 1979, you compare this to movies that came out in the 90s, and you're like, yeah, hey, this looks really good. The alien itself is like flawless. The only time I laughed at the appearance of the alien was when it was kind of dangling out the shuttle at the end, but
right.
It's just the way it kind of flops around. It's not really the costume itself or anything. Really, really great set design. And at first on the ship, you get this like really well lit, clean, it looks like what, you know, the public has seen of spacecrafts. You know, it's like when you watch documentary on space travel, like this is the stuff that NASA is showing the public. And there's this sense of normalcy in that. And then they get to the planet, it's immediately counter to that. Planet service is shrouded, mysterious, for lack of a better term, it's alien. And then after the xenomorph is on the ship scenes become darker, and just the overall feel of it, like the way that it pans around rooms, it feels more like labyrinthine. And then you even get that, like I even mentioned, that weird room where there's just chains hanging from the ceiling, where I think Brett is taken by the alien. It's like, what was that room? Like, what was the purpose of that? It was just like this weirdness to it. There's this off-kilterness, and it adds that immersiveness you get from, all right, this seems like a space exploration movie, to, oh, they've landed on an alien planet, there's something going on here, to, there's an alien on board, everyone is boned, you know? And so the set design just does such a good job of that.
Yeah, one of the things that I think I like about this movie and about other space movies that have this general idea is, if you look at futurism and this idea of futurism, as it even begins in like Metropolis, futurism always has this very clean, very chic, very minimalist lines. And we see futurism in all sorts of media. And so even like, spaceships in 1950s, it's got this very flat chrome. It's single toned. Everything is really smooth, And what this does in its set design is it shows a couple of things. One, the places where they live actually are customized like people would live there, which is not something that we see on spaceships often, and so it does give this notion of habitability. And then it also shows the incredible industriousness with which they had to actually build spaceships. And so in a way, it's almost more realistic. Like it's a little grittier, it's a little grosser, it's a little bit more mechanic. And they juxtapose between like the really clean stuff with this more mechanical, because the mechanical is necessary. It is what would be realism, and it upsets sort of the status quo that we've had with like futurism and spacecraft for the last 50 years before this movie. Everything was clean. It was chic. It was simple. It was exotic looking, but it was all very minimalist. Mm-hmm. And then in this, It's just like, no, we got chains here because we need the chains here. Like it looks as if it would function. It looks like a car. It looks like, the inside of a diesel engine.
And that's, I agree with that. I like that a lot because it's believable. Like, you look at an actual spaceship, it's not clean. There's computers and wiring and controls everywhere, like they are on the Nostromo. And also what I like about this is the realism of the spacesuits. They're not like these sleek kind of designs that you're talking about with this futurism. It's a spacesuit that we've seen NASA astronauts wear. And the thing is, when they're on the planet in their spacesuits, the spacesuits aren't like these shiny, spotless, like...
They're not like tailored.
Right. They're spacesuits again. Like...
They're bulky, they're big, they're uncomfortable, they're clearly burdensome.
I mean, having recently read a book on the origin of space travel, I know that spacesuits are actually heavily tailored, but they're baggy.
Right.
And because they're baggy on the outside, but then they've got the interior layer that actually squeezes you very tight because it's the pressure system.
Yeah, and I didn't mean tailored as in like tied to their body.
You just mean like really clean.
Really clean, like it looks like it just got back from like laundered might be a better freshly laundered.
It was just the cleaners. They aren't shiny. They're not spotless. They have space dust on them when they're exploring this planet. There's crap all over them because that's what would actually happen.
Right.
It's not this like interstellar bullshit.
It's gritty. Like it is gritty. It is gross. I mean, Ripley, she's like sweats. She gets dirty. She gets grimy. Like it is not so clean and crisp and precise. And it's interesting. You get, I think, a little bit more of that like crispness of look, that like very clean almost look from the Alien.
I mean, that kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, that it kind of looks machine-like.
Yeah. And I think that it is supposed to look like that a little bit.
It does, it does kind of this industrial look, which I actually thought there's like kind of some statements on capitalism in this, in that, I mean, the obvious and literal being that this company, what's the company called?
Weyland-Yutani.
Weyland-Yutani. They risk the safety of all of these crewmates, saying that they're expendable, just for the chance to study this perfect organism. And this ship, they say in the beginning that the Nostromo is a transport, but they never say, like, you get the impression that they're like on their way back home from whatever job they just did, but they never say what they just transported, right? Mm-hmm. So it gives you the idea that whatever job they just did was a cover for them actually transporting the alien. That's what the job was the whole time.
Oh yeah, clearly, I think.
No, it wasn't just like a side thing. The alien, I like how they made the alien's presence very intentional, and it's not like, oh, we went on this alien planet because we found this, this transmission that could have been an SOS, and an alien just happened to hop on board. No, it's not incidental that the alien's there. It was intended the whole time.
Yeah.
That's just good writing.
And the way that they do it so subtly too, because it gives you hints about Ash's character early on, and I mentioned this to you, the fact that when John Hurt has the face hugger on, Ash's character wants to put him into stasis. He wants to put him into a coma and let him there until they get back. It is the other guy on the ship, Dallas. He's talking to Dallas. Ash is the one that wants to put him into stasis, and Dallas is like, "No, let's do this. Let's cut him free now." And Ash is just like, "We shouldn't do that." And he's like, "Are you willing to take responsibility if something bad happens?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'll fucking do it. Just let's get him out of there." And so we get to sort of see Ash's intentions really subtly from the beginning. Like it's clear what his motivation is, which is to bring the alien back. And then it's once all of the stuff starts to happen, the alien breaks free and the crewmates are trying to kill it, that Ash has to start to try and kill Ripley, the biggest threat and clearly the smartest.
Like I said, she's kind of like that Bruce Willis, like badass that does everything right at the right time. Like, it starts out with her deciphering the transmission as a warning rather than SOS. So she's like, hey, I don't know if this guy should be down there. It seems more like a warning. But then she tries to follow the quarantine protocol. Ash kind of usurps her on that. Then she becomes suspicious of Ash. She even tells Dallas that. So you get this, like, you know, strong female lead, as we've grown to call them. And in 1979, that was kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
But Lambert's the worst. Like, she is the counter to the strong female lead, in my opinion. And Val, my wife, thought the same. I mean, from the moment where, like, you actually start to get to know her as a character on the surface of the planet, like, I think Dallas is talking to her, and he's like, would you stop griping? And she literally says, I like griping. And I think that sums up her character, because she just becomes this, like, sniveling mess as soon as Dallas dies.
Yeah, I also think that it's about her, like, representing another sort of realism, like, to be, because they have this in the second movie too. There's like a whiny guy in the second one that is, like, overly emotionally weak. But in this, it feels very much like it's realistic. Like, she's a reflection of what the audience would actually feel in that. So in that way, I think that she's a terrific actress. Veronica Cartwright, obviously, and we know who Veronica Cartwright is.
She's a good actress.
But yeah, the character it's just terrible. Like, she's like so emotionally helpless.
I feel like we're supposed to hate her. And I think that emotionally helpless, like, I think that's to also kind of show, like, the need for motherhood as well. Like, they're showing that vulnerability that you feel when Mother, the AI, has kind of abandoned them.
Yeah.
So
she's the foil. She's a foil to Ripley.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what my thought was.
And from a perspective, you know, they're just like, oh, it's not feminist to have her being portrayed with such weakness. But I would say that there is sort of a parallelism between Ripley and Parker as there is between Lambert and Brett, because I don't like Brett at all either.
Yeah, he's like the most two-dimensional character.
Yeah, there's something to dislike about him.
A good space movie, I would say, and good horror movie. I mean, there are a lot of things. I think at the core of it is the thing that produces fear here is, like, the unknown. There is so much mystery around what this alien is, what its motivations are, the whole planet that it comes from. We get the image of the architect at the beginning there, right? And no meaning behind it.
Right.
We can only infer things. So I think a lot of this comes from the unknown, as a lot of sci-fi horror movies do.
It's just so influential. It's honestly one of my favorite movies, and it is one that I will always go back to, and one that I think will always hold up.
Well, honestly, I was a little apprehensive. Like, I wanted to see this movie. This is one that we talked about doing from the start of this podcast. It's just we did the thing first, and, you know, you got to put some space between those two. And it was a little bit too much space, let's be honest. I also was like, hey, this is a 1979 movie. I kind of lowered my expectations. And I shouldn't have. Yeah. I shouldn't have doubted them, because for 1979, this is, like, awesome writing, the quality of the writing, the effects, the atmosphere, the soundtrack. I mean, the soundtrack is kind of a product of its time, but this is a great era of soundtracks. And the set design. It's like, I can't imagine how much money they spent. I didn't look it up, but this was bound to be a blockbuster. So I guess I could have communicated better. Because I also did a game. It's very apt that I ended up saying the year that this came out a lot at the end here, because I prepared a game that involves other movies that came out in 1979. I don't think this game is as good as yours, but I'm going to describe another movie that came out in 1979, and this game is called 1979 Space Novelty. This first one. This horror movie stars James Brolin and Margot Kidder in a supernatural and satanic nightmare.
James Brolin and Margot Kidder. Is it Amityville?
It is Amityville.
Yeah, Amityville horror.
Yeah, Amityville horror. Good job. All right, second one. This space exploration movie about an artificial intelligence bent on the destruction of Earth. It stars Nimoy and Shatner as they lead their uniformed crew to save the day.
So this is a Star Trek movie?
Yeah, it's the first Star Trek movie. Star Trek, the motion picture. Remember when they called movies motion pictures?
Yes, I do. Oh, man. Recently. Yesterday, in fact.
Third one. I'd be surprised if you know this one, but this is a space mystery. Another space movie. You can tell the space race had recently taken place. This space mystery stars Anthony Perkins and Maximilian Schell. The USS Palomino comes into contact with another ship that is assumed to be missing, yet now plans to be the first ship to travel through a black hole.
Oh my god, I know this movie.
Have you seen it?
I'll
give you a hint. I said the name of the movie.
You said the name of the movie?
And it wasn't an accident.
The Psycho 2. The Black Hole.
Psycho 2, the black hole. It is the black hole.
Yeah.
You'll get this one. Mm-hmm. This George Miller film stars Mel Gibson in his titular role before the Thunderdome.
Mad Max.
Yeah. And this last one. This animated anthology thriller was directed by Ray Patterson and tells the story of a group of teenagers reminiscing about their mystery-filled past.
I'm going to be honest. I don't think I know this one.
Probably not. This was, in 1979, this was Scooby-Doo Goes Hollywood.
Oh, okay. Whatever.
Intentionally ambiguous. Come on, I had to throw one in there.
That was good. Yeah, no, that was a good one. That counts. That's horror. We're going to be doing Scooby-Doo Zombie Island someday, so.
And I wasn't, it's not like I was mincing words there. It's truly what the movie's about.
It is what it's about, yeah. It
is an anthology.
I do love Scooby-Doo at Hollywood. Zombie Island is incredible.
Yeah, I mean, that's like classic.
I will not hear Zombie Island slander.
Oh, you will not hear it from me. Thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode of Watch No Evil. This is Zach.
And this is Matt. And remember, in space, nobody can hear you scream.